So the comic strip, what you want to do, obviously, start a new project and or use the one that you've created with the slide master view stuff that we've done. Of course, you're going to name it comic intro, and then you can name the slide as well. Just call it comic. Now, double clicking gets us here. First thing we want to do is what? For those of you starting new, we want to change the size. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to keep this 16 by 9. We can adjust that later, but as long as this aspect ratio is clicked, it's okay and everything will fit. So 16 by 9 at the aspect ratio, and we're good. Next, just to make sure that everything is set up how we want, we're going to go to the player. Just to recap again, I know we've gone over this, but I just want you to get in the habit of doing these things the right way. Well, my way, not so much the right way. We don't need resources. We do not need a menu for this. We can add it later. But in the meantime, I'm going to move it. So here I have it highlighted. And I'm just going to click this up arrow. Now it's moved over here. I'm going to click this up arrow. And then you'll shortly see it here on the left. And that's good for now, but I'm going to uncheck it. Nothing else here. I do not need a title. We will not have audio, so I don't need volume, and we also don't need captions. I'm going to hit OK. Now I have this set up here. Everything is very nice. Remember, I do not want the back and next either. That's something that we're going to be adding on our own. We're going to have our own little flair and style so it doesn't look like a storyline project. Uncheck, uncheck, hit OK. Now, we need to build this again. Remember, this is going to be a book with chapters. We're going to be using the base layer as our main book, and then our chapters are either going to be states, as we covered in class, or layers. In this particular video, I'm going to be showing you how to manipulate these states and add just one layer, and then that will be the assignment for Tuesday, and we'll talk about it a little bit, okay? So this is a comic, right? So all you want to do is go ahead and make it look like a comic. I'm going to try here just to use lines. Okay, so I got this set across. It's just a black line. I'm going to go to Format, Shape Outline. I'm going to add the weight, let's say 8 here. That's nice. And I'm going to keep it black. You can use whatever color that you want. Okay, now that I have that, I'm just going to duplicate it and kind of make it, again, more traditionally a comic. So I'm going to do this. Okay, and you're not sure why yet, but just go ahead and do this. This is going to be where our yes-no questions, because we're going to make this, as discussed, like a choose-your-own-adventure. So I'm going to grab these two now, duplicate it, and just plop it down here somewhere, right? Looks like I'm going to want to make this a little bit more balanced. As I said, keep your screen clean, and there you have it. Now we can move this later as we see and as we build. And maybe I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to do this. So it doesn't appear too gaudy. There. Now as you can see, this is going to be a comic strip. We'll have something occur here in the first scene in the top left, and then here, and then here, and then here, and all that. So on and so forth. And actually, I'm going to want to go ahead and do this as well. And that should be just about it. Now, one of the things that we have going now is we talk about keeping our timeline clean. Here I have 7 lines taking up a large part of what I need. Again, this is just something that is going to be guiding our comic strip, so it's not important that we label it, but it is important that we keep our timeline clean and minimize what we can. So all I'm going to do is do Command A, which is going to select all of that you see. Right click, group it. So say group. And then you can see it turns it down here into group 1. And then I'm going to call that comic base. And lock it. So now I can do anything I want up here, and it's not going to move all those things around. Okay? So you have a good comic base now, and it seems pretty clear, cut and dry what we're doing. Next up is we're just going to go ahead and begin this comic. And not to get too into it, but I want you to really think about a good topic, and I'll assign the specifics of that here in a moment. But first, let's go ahead and just do something. I'm going to grab the character here, and I'm going to go Illustrated Modern. We'll go ahead and do a medical scene here. Get Zachary. And Zachary's going to be talking with a pose of, we're going to start him off doing just a regular pose. So we'll do, let's say this, arms down at side and put it in. So here's Zach. You can make this as you see fit in any way, shape, or form. But for now, we're going to put Zach here. And again, I just click on him. And top left, everything up there is kind of a format. You might notice that when you do that with anything, be it a shape, be it a picture, be it text, when you click on it and or double click, it then changes this user interface up top to mimic what we can do to this fella. The first thing I'm going to do is crop it, right? Talked about that, so I'm going to make sure that he is right up about there. Keep that nice and clean. And there he is. Next up, what I want to do is I want to have him kind of come onto screen, right? So we don't want this by any way, shape, or form to be very static. We want to see some movement. So we know that we just click animation. And I'm going to go with fly in. And I'm going to do it from the left because he's going to come in from the left. And see, that's fine, right? So we'll do this, and he's good. So he's going to be coming in. But it makes sense for him to come in and enter this way. If there's someone over here, which of course there's going to be, it needs to be somebody who is already there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick another character. Maybe it's his boss, so we'll go with Sylvie here. The left. And expression, she is going to be neutral. No, not much going on. And her pose will be not yet quite thinking, but here we go. She's intimidating. She's got her hands crossed. And we're good. Okay. I gotta make some relatively the same size here. Oh, yay? No? Is that good? Yeah, we're good. So we'll have her already here on stage. All the way to the right, so I have room for my caption. She seems a little bit bigger than him right now. And I can't for some reason. There we go. That makes more sense. Again, click, crop. And we're good. So, I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick preview, just to make sure. Okay, there we have it. You got nothing really intense going on here. You have her standing and him coming in. He did come in a little quick there, so I'm going to go ahead and change that so it doesn't look like he's on a rocket ship. And I'm just going to do that for a second. Now, one thing that I would like to do is we have this at a second. We talked about that in class already, right? So he's flying in. His animation is going to take a second. So anything that happens after a second is going to be posed. So what I want to do, so I'm going to add a cue point like we did. Come down here to the timeline, add a cue. And I'm going to go ahead and make it seem like he is asking a question at that point. So I want his pose to change. So I'm going to go ahead and click on him. Come down here to states. And I'm going to edit states. Click on the new one there, right? That's the new one. And I'm just going to say asking. Because he's going to be asking a question. Did all that. There he is in asking. You can see his face change. I don't know if you can see that or not, but his face changed a little bit. And I do also want to change his pose now. So his pose is going to be more inquiry-based, right? So as if he's proposing a question. And that looks like it's going to be, let's see, this one here. This looks good. Okay? So I'm going to say done editing, and we're good. So all my trigger is going to say, because I know what I want it to do, I want him to change to that pose of asking, right? Let me just make sure I go down here. So I want it to change to that state of asking that we created, right? why it's taking so long, but you know that we made that. And then I want it to happen here at 1 second. The reason I want it to happen at 1 second is because that's when the animation will complete. So my trigger is going to say, change state of. And of course I didn't name it. Character 1, I'll change that here momentarily. So Zach, to state asking when the timeline reaches, and that's where I put that cue point. So I'm going to go ahead and put number 1, which is 1 second. Okay, so go ahead and preview this slide. There it comes, and he's asking a question. So what an appropriate time for us now to add a caption would be at that 1 second mark. Go ahead and put Zach. And go ahead and put Sylvie. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and insert. I'm going to do my caption now. I'm going to draw it. Of course, it's going to come up that weird blue like it does. And I'm going to change colors. I'm going to edit that thing by going to Format. I want it to be white. I want there to be a very subtle kind of dark gray around it. And I'm going to change the text to black without that. So, hello, Sylvie. I have a quick question. Now, first and foremost, we see that it's center aligned. We want to make sure that's left aligned. We also saw that the text got smaller, right? We want to change that by right-clicking, going to Format, Shape, Text Box, and then we do not want to shrink text because our goal is to have the text the same size throughout the entire training. This is a little different here, so everything that happens in this comic is going to have a different size text, so don't worry about that as much. What we're going to do is click on Resize Shape to Fit Text, and then hit Close. And that is way too big, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to knock that down to, let's say, 10. It's still a little big, so let's say 8. And I'll go ahead and extend that out, make that a little bit more appropriate, and there we go. Remember, this is very much implied that Zachary is talking. You do not need to do this, okay? Please do not do that. But here we are. And let's see, so my marker was here at 1 second, and I'm going to pull that back. So here we go. Let's see what happens now. Nice little style. He comes in, his pose changes, and here comes his question. Now here, when I talked about user control in adult learning theory, it's also called learner agency, in the sense that you want the user to have complete and total, not complete and total control, but as much control as possible. So you do not want this to be automatic. Okay? You do not want this to automatically say, go on to what Sylvie is now going to say. You're going to want to give it a bit of a moment so that way they can take their time, read what's being said, assess the scene, and then move on at their will. I like to use, when I'm doing this stuff, I like to use the chevron. You know what I'm talking about when I plop it on here. It's this guy right here. Okay? Just this little shape. And I don't know what color I'm going to use, but remember that the color of this button is a learning prompt. Okay? So whatever your back and next are in your training and all that stuff, that is what the learning prompt has to be. Okay? And just to stick with the theme that I did earlier, I'm going to go ahead and make that red. And I'm not going to put an outline on it, I'm just going to keep it simple. Oh goodness, and the other thing I forgot to do, and you're absolutely right, is to set that as the default caption shape. So now that I have this, I'm just going to put that right here at the end. And I'm going to add a little animation to it, because I want them to not only see it, but not put directions on here. But if they're reading this and all of a sudden this little chevron flies on the screen, the hope is that they realize that it's something they need to click on. Not only on the color, but the shape, and then of course the proximity and timing. So I'm going to click on that. And all I'm going to do next is say what? I want to hide this, but then show what Sylvie is going to say. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and name it and call it Zach Speak. And go from there, okay? So this button, the very first thing that I needed to do is hide what Zach is saying. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on it, and the action is going to be change the state of, which is correct, and you'll see why. And I want to change the state of Zach Speak. I want to change that to hidden when the user clicks chevron, okay? I'm going to say okay. I definitely want to come down here and call that thing continue. I just want to make sure that we're on that. So that's the first thing that's going to do. So let's go ahead and make sure that everything's working here. Okay, very nice, very appropriate. I click on this. That goes away, but then this chevron is still kind of sitting out there. Also, what she is about to say needs to come up. So we need to not only get rid of that chevron now, but also show what Sylvie's going to respond with. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is copy and paste this, double click on it, and this time I want to change the state of continue. Remember, I changed it to continue, to hidden when the user clicks continue. And that might seem confusing because you're actually applying an action to do something to the object, right? So this is the continue button and the object. Okay, and then just because of how things are going, I want to hide that real quick so it's not in my way, and I'm also going to hide the chevron. Now I'm going to come up and put a caption in there, put it up here, and it's just simply going to say, that stinking shadow. Hey, Zach. Right, Zach? ... What can I help you with? So frustratingly enough, it didn't carry that default over, so I have to come back home. I have to do the left align. I have to get rid of that. I also have to right click and say format shape, and I have to come to text box and resize shape. Say okay. And that should be 8 like I want. Okay. I'll go ahead and pull that back. Move this over here. And we're good. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're right. This is going to be on stage the entire time unless we tell it otherwise. So we could move things down here and manipulate when things are happening on a timeline by pausing it, but that's going to get frustrating. So what I want you to do is grab this shape, one thing we did not go over in class, come down here to states and not create a new one just yet, but see this initial state? It says normal. I want you to change that to hidden. That way, it is not seen initially. It will only be seen when we go ahead and program it to do so. Okay, so go back to the timeline. I'm going to get this continue button happening, so you see that it's happening. And I'm going to put on a new trigger and say change state of. Of course, I didn't call it Sylvie Speak, so just say rounded corner to normal when user clicks continue. Hit OK. All right, let's go ahead and preview that. Oh, darn it, forgot something. One thing that I should tell you, and I do want to tell you, because I've gotten rid of this here, so you see that down here, might as well do this one here, I have this eyeball. So it's hidden when I do that. I wanted it out of the way so I could organize my stage. But if I don't turn that back on, you're not going to see it in the output. Okay, so make sure all your eyeballs are shown when you go to preview. So Zach coming on, he's asking a question. I click that, all his stuff goes away, and then of course Sylvie's information comes up. She is asking a question. Her pose did not change. Entirely up to you how in depth you want to get with that. I'm going to go ahead and change it. So I'm going to go ahead and say states, edit states. And I'll give her an asking one as well, even though she's more telling. But she is talking, so I'm going to go click on her. We're going to change her pose. to be more kind of what's up, what do you got going on, once everything speeds up here a little bit. And should be doing the same as he was there. Okay? So I'm done editing states, and the last thing that I want to do, see over here in my trigger panel, as I have my continue, so I don't have to really mess with it too much at the moment. I can just say change state of, and it's not that one, change state of Sylvie Speak. So I'll just copy one of these. And this time I'm going to say change state of Sylvie. Did I do that? Yep. To asking when the user clicks continue. So now I'll preview this, and everything should happen as we'd like it to. Here he comes. There we go. All that goes away. Her question comes up, and she changes poses. We're good to go. So now you're probably recognizing the pattern, and I will continue. But the pattern would be we need to put a chevron on for her, of which then this chevron is going to click. Her talk is going away, and he's going to ask his question. So let's do that. I do want to come to the timeline and get some of this stuff out of the way here so I can actually see. I'll keep my chevron up because I just want to copy that. Command-CV. Oh wait, no, I do want that one. And I'm going to get rid of that. So this one now is called Continue 1. I'm just going to change it to Continue 2 just to keep it clear. I'm going to put that up here. And because I copied and pasted it from the original, you'll see now when I go to animation, it still has the fly-in. So we don't have to mess with that. But also, this is where that faded scaffolding comes in. This will be up to you, but I'm going to do one more fly-in here in the first scene. But then the idea is in the rest of these, as the conversation continues, you don't need to do the fly-in because they know when they see that chevron that they need to click it. Okay, all we're doing is establishing that as a learning prompt, A by color, B by animation, and then of course by the shape. So now I got continue 2, and one thing you need to be a little bit careful of is, as you can see here, all of the triggers came along with it as well. And I'm just going to delete those because we're going to build those out of habit, but you'll see later that it's going to be quite useful to have those. So now I'm going to just do what I know needs to happen first. Hey. And by that, I know that I want to go ahead and hide Sylvie Speak, and I want to hide the chevron. So I know those two things are going to happen for sure. So here we go. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say change state of continue 2 to hidden when user clicks continue 2. Hit OK. And then I'm going to say change state of Sylvie Speak to hidden when the user clicks continue to. So that I know. I definitely know that I want those two things to hide. But now I want to go back and have Zachary ask his question, so I need to show Zach Speak, right? So I'm going to go ahead and come here. I'm going to say change state of Zach Speak to normal when user clicks continue to. All of that is fine. The only problem is Zach Speak, if we go and hide all this stuff now, since we know it's going to be hidden, Zach Speak still says his little initial prompt. So what we need to do is go to States, Edit States, and I'm just going to call it Question, and change everything. So this is the blue one, so it's the active one. I'm going to change everything to reflect that he's asking a question. Cool. Can I please have the weekend off? Okay, so there is his question, and it's in a state called question. So done. And that's all fine and good. So we need to also add to that chevron that it's going to show it, which is fine, but then change the state to the question that we want. So over here in continue to, it's still on here, we are going to say, change the state of Zach Speak to question, which is, oh, sorry, that's just Zach. Zach Speak to question when user clicks continue to. Now, I don't know if this is getting confusing or not, but all you're doing is kind of creating what's being said and when, and then the organization of what happens when you click, things disappearing, things changing states. As you could probably tell already, this is going to be a great exercise, a repetitive exercise, but a good exercise in just the very intricate and necessary parts of understanding storyline. I can hit OK here. I go to preview this. I want to make sure all my eyeballs are up. And let's see what happens. See if I made any mistakes. We're good. Zach comes in. Oh, goodness gracious. We see that, don't we? So we got to fix that. So I click on that. She changes poses. This comes up. Now when I click on this, you can see that not only did that show again, exactly where we had it before, but it changed the state to the new question. All right? Okay. So one thing's for sure is I need to get that second chevron out of the way. And I'm going to do that by setting it initially to hidden, right? Oh, goodness, wrong thing. And then I'm going to come back to the timeline, and I got to go to continue 1, and I'm going to say change state of continue 2 to normal when the user clicks continue. Now let's see what happens. There's a pretty good chance that animation is going to happen already, but that might be okay. There we go. And I just want to do a couple more things here, and I'm going to get into some grave detail with this. You do not have to, okay? I just want to make sure that I'm going to add her another state to Sylvie here, and I'm going to call it waiting. Because basically she's going to be waiting to hear the question, right? And it's got to be something different from arms crossed, so I've got to click on her, go up here to pose, and let's see, not arm, maybe hands on hips. Let's see if we can find a hands on hips. What is she waiting for? Hands on hips. Okay, you can see also here when I did this hands on hips that her elbow kind of came over a little, so I got to go up to crop and just keep it framed within the scene here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, we're good. I mean, at least good enough, right? So there she is. She is waiting. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to say done editing states. And I know that on continue 2 is when I want that to happen. So I'm going to come over here to continue 2. And I'm going to say change the state of Sylvie to waiting, which is a nice little default there when user clicks not Sylvie, but continue 2. And finally, I'm going to come back here to Zach, edit states again, and see if I can find another pose that is him asking a question. So I have another one here. I'm going to say question, ask. Go up here to pose. Whoa. Go back up here to pose and do this one here. Okay? So done editing states. And I also know that I want that to happen on question, no, excuse me, continue to. So I'm going to copy and paste that. Change state of Zach to question ask when user clicks not Zach, but again, it's question continue to. So after she says, yeah, what's up, I want all of these things to happen. So here we go. Let's see what it looks like. Comes on, ask a question, is pose changed? She changes pose, and then she's welcoming the question. She goes back to awaiting, he then asks his question. Okay, now here is where the choose your own adventure comes in. What I want you to do, and this is entirely up to you, if you wanted to though, you could have had the yes and no here the whole time. I may do that, I may not, I don't know, I just wanted to kind of do this in kind of a procedural way. So now what you want to do is add 2 buttons here in this little shell. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say button, and I think I'm going to do a normal one here. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw it. I want it to be as centered as I possibly can. And I'm going to duplicate that. So Control C, Control V. Again, I'm going to try to just put this on here where it's normal. That seems about right. I do not want to have any type of border. I'm not a border guy, so I'm going to take the border off of both of these. And then I'm going to change colors. I've always associated yes with green and then no with red. So if you want to do that, you can. Then I'm going to actually put the word yes in here, Y, E, S, and then no in here, N-O. That's blatantly obvious what's going on here. I think that might be just a little big, so I might knock that down to 12. I also think that's a little big, so I'll knock that down to 12. So these are going to be 2 buttons. You can already see that my trigger panel is getting intense. Look at all that. But the good news is I don't have much to do anymore in this particular scene because, and I'll continue to show you, but I'm going to come back to timeline. I'm going to make sure this is right. So this is going to be called no. And I am going to keep them on the scene the whole time. So this is no, so I'm going to say no underscore 1. And this is going to be yes underscore 1. So here we go. Now, what's going to happen is that you're going to now create a layer, which is one of the reasons it's not terrible about this trigger panel, because we're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it, well, we'll start off with yes underscore 1. And you notice that matches our button. So I'm going to say that. I'm also going to do another layer that says no underscore 1. No underscore 1. And we're good, right? So these 2 buttons are going to either A, navigate to what? No underscore 1 or yes underscore 1. So add trigger. When I'm on no, it's going to say show layer, no underscore 1 when user clicks no 1. See how that matched up? So I know exactly what I'm doing. I hit OK. I'm going to go to yes 1, show layer, yes 1 when user clicks yes 1. So the more you can do that to kind of match the nomenclature, the easier it's going to be to organize. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to come back to, and I'll do yes. So I'm going to have just Sylvie now in this layer. So when I said before about why the base layer is going to gray out for you, just so you can still see, this is a perfect example of it, because I'm going to go now to insert. I'm going to hit character, and I'm going to hit, where's Sylvie? There she is. And we'll do a front. And I'll plop her on here. And since this is just a Sylvie, I am going to make it larger. So it seems more of a torso shot, like we zoomed in on her, okay? You know that I now have to crop, because I want to make sure that it's nice and clean. And I know where to crop, right? Because it grayed out like that. I know that I have to crop it so it fits as though it's in my comic scene. It's not going to be perfect, so I'm just going to move it down a little bit. And there you can see, goodness, it looks like Sylvie's just here ready to go. And I don't need to add much animation, do I? I just have to kind of put her on here. I'm going to move her over just a tad. And she is saying yes, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to insert my caption. And start typing. Yes, right? So we're in yes 1. If you look down here, we're in yes 1, and the user clicked yes. Yes. But can you come in Sunday night to cover a shift? Don't know why that doesn't carry over, but I'm going to undo that. Left justify. And of course I have to make sure my text stays the same size. The format shape, text box. Resize shape. And just a little bit of movement there. Ooh, I don't like that. That's fine. Okay. So we'll put Sylvie talking, and we're good. A couple things that I would like you to do, though. So she has responded, and she has a rebuttal, so she has a question. You know that we're going to come over to Comic, and let's keep this simple, right? So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to Shift, Control C, or right click, come back to my yes, Command V. So now I have everything cool because it's the exact same size and shape. Those buttons are exactly how I want them. Oop. So that's what this layer is going to look like. But one thing that I want you to do is I do not want the ability of the user, once they've clicked this layer, I don't want them to be able to click yes or no again. So I want to have that kind of disabled. Now we could do that using a trigger, but I'm hoping that we can also use it just by doing a shape. And the reason I want you to use a shape is I want this scene to still be seen, right? I still want the user to see what was going on, but I want it to appear as though it's been viewed already. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Insert and grab a shape, just a regular square. I'm going to grab that and cover all of this. All the way back here. I'm going to have it do that. Doesn't need to be perfect right now. We can go back and do the details later. And all I'm going to do is right click and say Format Shape. I'm going to change the color to white. But I'm going to put that opacity up pretty good here. So let's say about 35 seems good. And of course I need to get rid of that border. Okay? So when this layer shows up, not only is it going to have a answer, so here's her answer. Then of course she has a rebuttal, so I have some more questions and you'll probably know what to do there. But it's going to kind of cover up what was happening so we can still see it but not click on it and still be in context of what's happening, right? But I do want to put a little bit of an animation on that. I'm just going to say fade and 75 seconds. So let's go ahead and see what that does. All we know now is that yes is going to show the yes layer and all that stuff is going to happen. So let's preview that. So here we go. In this, and here's the question. We're going to say yes. You can see how that faded. See that? I can't click on the buttons. I can't. But then that is faded, and here's the new question with something else now. Now, you're also going to want, so I'm just going to come down here to yes, I'm going to grab Sylvie and her, actually I'm going to grab all of this, right? So, copy, go into no, Command V. And here, everything, again, it's going to stay the same. Oh no, I forgot my fade. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to say no. I need you here. Can you, I don't know, have next weekend? Can you take next weekend? Let's do that. Take next weekend. So as you can see here, she said no, so we know that. And then, of course, she's just asking another question, so everything remains the same. I'm going to come back here to the comic because there's something else that I want to do, and this is what we have to get used to. We need to let that user know what's happening when. So decisions that they've made, let's help them organize their path through this. So I'm going to click on yes, and I'm going to come down to states, and you can see that I have those built-in options of normal, hover, down, visited, and disabled. Visited is, I think, is one that we can work, but I'm going to go ahead and edit states and show you another one that I'd like to use, and that's built-in. So what I'm going to do is click a new, and then the built-in one is going to be called selected. See it? So I'm going to hit selected. I'm going to hit add. So the built-in ones are good to use because you don't need to put anything in your trigger panel, okay? Which I think is a good thing. So here we have selected. I'm going to hit done editing states, and we're good. But if you can see now in my states, there's nothing really showing that that is selected, right? Like it's the same color and all that. So I'm going to go back to edit states. I'm going to go to selected. It's blue, so now I know I can come up here. And I'm just going to go to format, and you have all these options. Let's say the active one is going to be orange. Yeah, so we'll just say that orange. And I'm going to hit done editing states. I want to do the same to no, right? So if I go to no, I don't have it down here, so I'm going to say edit states. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to go to selected. There we go, selected. And I'm going to change it to orange right away. So we know that orange means that that's the selected/active state. So I'm going to hit done. And again, because it's built in, you don't need to add a trigger. The moment that I click on it, also known as selecting it, so the moment that it's selected, it will actually turn that color. So I'm going to say preview this slide. Nicely done here. So here we go. All right. Question. So I'm going to say yes. Now you can see that it turned orange, and I can still tell that it turned orange, and then it moved on. Okay? So I'm going to replay this. Same thing. We go through this. Quick question. We know all about this. And then I'm going to say no. No turned orange. I can't click on anything anymore. And then here's her saying, can you have next weekend off instead? Okay? I'm going to close that. And now you're pretty well clean. So now she's going to, let's see, I'm going to go here. So yes. So now down here in the bottom left is going to be some sort of scene, correct? That is either a yes or no based on what she's saying. And then, of course, you're going to have another yes or no, and then it's going to have an ending scene. And that should do it. So all you're doing at this point are the top two. Okay? I want you to map it out, kind of what the whole conversation is going to be. But for class on Tuesday, all you need to have done is these top two as such, and then we'll continue on from there.